There's only one room for one long-headed person, as well as one Keegan. We got Keegan-Michael Key out there, and we got Benedict Cumberbatch. I belong on YouTube. Hey everybody, it's time for Movie Man's Opinions. I am that movie man, and I do have a lot of opinions. And today, I'm giving you my opinions on Jane Campion's Best Picture nominee, The Power of the Dog. But first, let me remind you all that if you like my opinions and want to hear more, please like and subscribe, ring the bell so you can be notified whenever I drop my latest opinion. If you want to hear more about my story and you want to hear more about my favorite films and TV shows and all of that, please stick around because I'm here to stay. I'll be giving my brief overall thoughts, non-spoilers off the top, so if you care about spoilers or you don't want to know anything before you go in to see the movie, then you will be fine. And then I will be doing a spoiler section so I can go in more depth of some of my criticisms as well as some of my things that I really did enjoy about the film. And then I will wrap up with my overall review of the film as well as recommending you two movies that I think you should see if you enjoyed this movie, or even if you don't, I still think they're worth seeing. So, what is Power of the Dog? Power of the Dog is about Benedict Cumberbatch and Todd from Breaking Bad becoming ranchers, and things get real crazy when Todd marries Mary Jane and Doctor Strange cannot handle that shit. And now my overall thoughts on the film? I think it's a fine film. Overall, I think this is a very well-made, very well-acted film that I didn't really feel anything for, if that makes sense. Overall, this is a very well-made film. It's very well acted and very well directed, but I have to say that I do feel that this film is currently being a little overhyped. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's not kid ourselves. At the time of my recording of this, this is the front runner for winning Best Picture this year. This film has won so many awards across all critics' boards, across all of these things, and I'll be honest, I do not know what movie those critics saw. I think this is a very well-made film. Nominated for Best Picture makes complete sense. There's a lot of stuff to like about this movie, but I just don't understand why for a lot of people this was such a clear frontrunner over stuff like Belfast or West Side Story. And I promise I will keep this review to be on the merits of the film, not the films that it's compared to, or not the films that it's up against in the Best Picture race. I promise you. I will look at it as objective as I can. All right, so first off, I want to tell you, what should you expect? Well, this is a slow burn film. This is a film that is very deliberately paced, and it's going to take a little bit for you to feel like it's getting going. Thankfully, the performances are engaging, but I will admit, because Benedict Cumberbatch is so good at playing an asshole in this movie, it's really hard to... It's very hard to really, I don't know, care about him in the beginning, because he's just such a... And that's very frustrating at the beginning of this. And it does involve a fair amount of secondhand embarrassment and bullying, so it's really hard to say you enjoyed yourself, but it is worth watching. Now, given the fact that I don't exactly have the same favorable opinion of this film as some critics did, I thought it would be only fair to read what some other critics have to say about it. Now, first off, it is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a 94% critics rating as well as a 76% audience rating. So it is still pretty fair, but obviously critics liked it a little bit more than audiences, and I can kind of understand why. I want to read some reviews from some critics that really did enjoy the film, so you have more of a more objective opinion. So here we are. Brought to life by a stellar ensemble cast led by Benedict Cumberbatch, The Power of the Dog reaffirms writer-director Jane Campion as one of her generation's finest filmmakers. I do agree with the Jane Campion as an incredible filmmaker. But this is the one that I agree with the most. It's a tough watch at times, but not necessarily in the ways that you think it's going to be. It challenges you, it defies your expectations, and it fights for empathy and compassion for difficult characters. Now, my experience watching the film. I totally got what this film was going for. I totally got that we were supposed to feel that Benedict Cumberbatch is an asshole because of a lot of his dealing with his masculinity and dealing with a lot of his potential sexuality. And I love the commentary on toxic masculinity and the idea of macho, you know, the macho cowboy mentality. But I think the film was about more than that. I think it was also about the loneliness. And I think it's also about the pain we inflict when we feel hurt or misunderstood. And while that is a lot to say, I felt that the film didn't really leave me with anything more than that. It left me with those concepts, and there are interesting things to talk about with this film, but I wish it gave me more than just feeling sorry for and pitying a lot of these characters. Now the standouts, and again, I don't want to harp too much on the negatives. I will, because that's just my honest opinion. However, I do want to emphasize this is a very well directed movie and a very well acted movie. I did not like the script, but there are clearly people who did. What I felt was the cinematography was gorgeous, the music was haunting and an interesting choice for the story, as well as the production design was just, I don't know, it felt so lived in. And I thought the New Zealand landscape was really interesting to kind of do a Western America with a different country as the background. Was kind of, it helped add to kind of this mystique that we have of the West. Because the hills didn't quite feel American, but it felt akin to what you would feel with the New Zealand landscape. And so I can't give you any more details without spoiling any of the film. So I'm going to just say, why don't you stop right here and either go watch the film or fast forward to the end. I will include below where you should fast forward to get past the spoiler section. But why don't you go, take a break, go watch it, grab a coffee, do something. I'm going to talk with the people who want to be spoiled. All right, for those who need the gritty details, the spoilerific deliciousness that is a spoiler review, you have come to the right place. Welcome home, family. I have my notes. First, let's start with what worked. Jesse Plemons. Now, I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan, and I love Jesse Plemons as Todd. I thought he played a sociopath really well in that show. And ever since then, I've been so impressed with his filmography. Everything has come out, whether it was Black Mass or Judas and the Black Messiah or Jungle Cruise, the cinematic masterpiece that is Jungle Cruise, where he plays a submarine captain. Illusion! Iconic as hell. And I really do believe this film does him justice. I think that he deserves his Oscar nomination. So Jesse Plemons was great as the older brother. I thought that he really brought a distance to that character, and he did a lot without saying much. Like, again, this is why I want to say this was a very well directed film. I don't think the script was as good as it could have been, but I think that the way Jane Campion directed the actors to move and how much detail you got from the way these characters move, you can only get that in a well acted and well directed film. So again, highest props to all those people involved. All right, now time to talk about the second hardest name to pronounce in this whole thing, which is Cody Smit-McPhee. Now, Cody, I first saw him in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and any of you who have been on this channel for even a couple of weeks know that I enjoy that movie. I first noticed him from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and I thought that he did a really good job in that film. It was a very understated role, so it's kind of can get lost in the weeds, but I thought that it still was memorable. So when I saw he got an Oscar nomination for this film, I was like, good for him! I hope it's good! And I will say, he was my favorite character of the film. He was the character that I felt the most for. The kid just knows how to give you weird vibes, even if you feel like you're kind of like, oh, you're endearing, but you killed 2 rabbits in the course of a movie. That's not okay. That's not okay. And then you killed Doctor Strange. It's not a good look. This kid, I guess probably not kid, he's probably older than I am, but I'm going to say kid because that's how he's portrayed, and that makes me feel better. So, his character was really fascinating, and it's the character that I think I have the most questions on. And it was the one that I felt for the most, because you really felt that he was comfortable with who he is. He was comfortable with how his sexuality was presented. He felt comfortable with just everything about him. And you could tell that he wanted to kill Benedict Cumberbatch, but I just didn't know quite how that was going to play out. And then when it finally had the ending, and I will say that was probably the best part of the film for me, was the ending when you realize that Benedict Cumberbatch died of anthrax and that it was Cody Smit-McPhee who gave it to him. That was a fascinating revelation. It made me rethink the scenes that led up to it, and was it purposeful? Was it accidental? I felt that it was very clearly purposeful, but we'll get there. Anyway, the next person I want to bring up is Kirsten Dunst. I think that the thing is that she was always so associated with the Spider-Man movies, which, you know, granted they were iconic and she was an iconic part of them, but I think that this film did such a great job of putting you in her shoes and making you feel her plight, feel her anxiety and her sense of inadequacy, going into from being basically a waitress, the head waitress, and then now becoming an aristocrat, and how she did not feel comfortable in that position at all. I found her journey into the alcoholism stuff was really compelling and really interesting, and you felt it. And again, I think that this film could have easily made you hate all of these characters, and the only one that I still don't know if they did a good job at making you feel justified, but I also don't know if we were supposed to feel differently, was Benedict. But Kirsten, you really just felt heartbroken for her, and that was probably some of the hardest stuff to watch, was the emotional stuff with her. So again, kudos to her. Let's talk about the big-headed man himself, Benedict Cumberbatch. As a fellow big-headed brother, I really just appreciated seeing another one of us represented on screen, since Star Wars continues to erase the fact that long-headed people exist, and they decide that they have to get their traditionally long-headed villains to now be played by round-headed people.
He dies. So what is the message he's sending is that long.
But he got an Oscar nomination! Now, I really want to go into the direction of Jane Campion, because I don't think that it should be overlooked. And if she wins the Oscar for Best Direction, I think that it would be deserved. She does an incredible feat here. And the film feels so authentic, and it feels unnerving, and the way the camera moves, and obviously that goes to the cinematography team as well, but everything just felt so layered. And again, everything that I'm giving credit for, obviously I'm giving credit to the actors and all these other departments, but it cannot be overstated that she was the person that tied it all together, the person who had the vision and kept it going throughout the whole thing. And I think that it's just, her nomination is well deserved. Now, for cinematography, which is also nominated for Best Achievement in Cinematography, this goes to Ari Wegner. Now, she did an incredible job with this film, and I thought that just the way that she photographed the landscape and used wide frames and just really captured the beauty of New Zealand it was just beautiful. And you're going to see any review is going to bring up the cinematography, and it is just fantastic. I don't think it makes up for the bad script, but I think that overall the music was done by Johnny Greenwood, and it's also up for an Oscar. It deserves it. It's great. And I think it really helps set the tone with everything, and I think that it's unnerving but lonely and hollow in a way that really puts you into the mindset of what this film is, and that it's not happy, it's not pleasant, it's visceral. Now, the production design is also worth noting, because it was just so detailed. It all served the story just in how the texture, you felt everything, and you felt the grime. It felt like this was all lived in, and people in the attention to detail was just there. And I have to give credit to Grant Major and Amber Richards. Grant Major was the production designer, as well as Amber Richards is the set decorator, and just did an incredible job with this film. All right, now the ultimate question is, did I like the film? Not particularly, but I'll be honest, like watching some of the stuff, I knew this wasn't going to be a film that I was going to like as much as some of the other films that I've seen this year. However, do I appreciate this film? Not as much as some of these critics, but yes, I think it is a very well-made film, and while it may not be to my personal tastes again, I have problems with some of the script and how they chose to do some exposition and where certain plot lines went and things like that, so I got my issues with that, but other than that, it is a very good film, so I would recommend it. And for scenes that move me, the one that I can't get out of my head is the dinner scene. The dinner scene was so awkward, and just the fact that he makes her play the piano when she felt self-conscious of it the first time, and now it's in front of people that she feels intimidated by. Oh, good Lord, I wanted to fast forward through that scene if it wasn't for Kirsten Dunst's beautiful acting. Damn you, Kirsten. Why did you make me sit through that? You had to sit through it, not me. I don't have to. So anyway, I thought that was a good scene. I also do just like, this is more just a Keegan thing, if I did like how many times Benedict Cumberbatch would mention the name Bronco Henry. And I also find it very funny that a lot of critics were like, oh, the revelation that Benedict Cumberbatch is gay in the movie. It's such a twist. He put so much emphasis on the name Bronco Henry. Come on, guys. Like, if it was a surprise for you, you know, well done, I suppose, but for the rest of us, perhaps this man is not as straight as he pretends to be. And now, with that, I did think one of the most powerful scenes was him braiding the lasso while talking about the actual backstory to Bronco Henry. And as much as I joke about that name, because it is a very funny name, I really did feel myself moved by that scene. I really liked the imagery and the fact that the lasso, the way it was braided and the care that he put into it, I thought that that was just, it was very evocative in ways that you wouldn't expect it to be. And not quite to the ghost pottery level, but it certainly was there was something so visceral about the very close-up shots of his hands with the leather that was very compelling and very interesting. And again, I think, like I said, I think this movie is a good movie. I just didn't like it as much as other people did, but I think people might like it. But what did I walk away with? At the end of the day, what did I walk away from this film with? I walked away with it feeling not as much as I wish I did, but I think I walked away with this sense of, I feel bad for this brand of men. And I feel bad for this brand of people who, and maybe not just limiting to men, but anybody that feels the need to cover up their insecurities through aggression and bullying. And I get it. It all comes out in different ways with all of us. But it just made me sad. It made me sad, and I wish there was a little bit more empathy in his character, because he clearly was hurting. And he clearly was dealing with such loneliness and a sense of being misunderstood that I really was very compelled by that part of the story, and that made me very sad. Now, wrapping up, I think I'm going to give this film a 3.5 out of 5. I think it was good. I think it was worth seeing, and I think if it moved me a little bit more, I think I would have given it a little bit of a higher rating. That's where my thoughts are on that. So I do think this is worth seeing, and I think that it's definitely an interesting one, especially depending on how the Oscars shake out. While it's not a film that you're going to walk away feeling joyful or, you know, being reinvigorated like something like Tick, Tick, Boom or Belfast would, this is a good film. And it's a good film that is worth seeing when you're in the proper headspace to enjoy it. Now on to our cinematic pairings. Now, in my opinion, I think there's always a safe choice and an out-of-the-box choice. Now, the safe choice for this film is Nomadland. Nomadland is an incredible film by Chloe Zhao. It is all about Frances McDormand, who lives in a van, dealing with grief, going through the country. And that's it. And it's brilliant. And it's beautiful. And if you really enjoyed this movie, I have a feeling you would really enjoy that. An out-of-the-box one, if you want to take this and talk about kind of toxic male mentalities that, in a film that kind of comments on that, but also really dives into a re-examining on a lot of the rom-com tropes that we've come to know and embed within ourselves, is you gotta check out 500 Days of Summer. I know that sounds weird to talk about Power of the Dog and recommend 500 Days of Summer. Now, hear me out. 500 Days of Summer is a film about Joseph Gordon-Levitt's dealing with a breakup with Zooey Deschanel, and the whole film is about him reflecting on what went wrong in that relationship. And the whole thing of the film is that he's actually looking at the whole relationship wrong and realizing that they were never really going to work, and he was always kind of forcing this relationship to work and not really listening and not really responding. And it's kind of an unlearning of that toxic male behavior to kind of see ourselves as the rom-com center of the story when we're clearly not. And I think that it's a very powerful film in that regard, and I think that that's why I would recommend it. If you're interested and you like the part of the Power of the Dog that was about deconstructing toxic masculinity, I think that if you wanted to see that deconstructed in rom-coms and done very effectively, I think 500 Days of Summer is a good film for you. So I justified the hell out of that shit. I think that's worth a like and subscribe, am I right? Now, please, everybody, thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for your thoughts. I love your comments. Please recommend what I should do next. Please tell me what I should do. And if you agree with me, if you disagree, put it down in the comments below. Let's have a discussion. I love talking with you about this stuff. And follow me at Movie Man Opinions on TikTok and Instagram for a lot more opinions and even worse grammar. And that's it, guys. I will see you next time. I am Movie Man, and this was my opinions. And hey, let's watch something together. Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and check out some of these totally not randomly chose videos. I mean, I think you'll like that one. I don't know, just right there.